They thought she was just another woman they could push around, until the sleeve tore, and the sight of a Marine Corps tattoo silenced an entire bar. In that moment, respect wasn't demanded, it was commanded. It was a Friday night in a dimly lit roadside bar just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, the kind of place where neon beer signs flickered in the windows and the jukebox played old Southern rock on repeat. The smell of smoke and fried food hung thick in the air, and groups of bikers had rolled in, leather jackets creaking as they filled the stools and booths, their heavy laughter cutting through the noise of clinking glasses. Among the crowd was a woman who seemed out of place, not because she didn't belong in a bar, but because she carried herself differently. She was tall, strong, and striking, a black woman in a simple long-sleeved shirt and jeans, sitting quietly at the corner table with nothing but a glass of water in front of her. She wasn't there to make a scene. She wasn't there for attention. But life has a way of testing people in moments they least expect. A group of bikers noticed her, rough men who thrived on the energy of intimidation, and one of them, a broad, tattooed man with a beard down to his chest, decided to swagger over. His friends egged him on, laughing under their breath, as he leaned on her table with a smirk. "What's a pretty thing like you doing here all alone?" he said, loud enough for half the bar to hear. She didn't look up, didn't flinch, didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. She simply sipped her water and kept her eyes on the scratched wooden surface. That silence stung him more than an insult would have, and his buddies howled with laughter. "She's too good for you, Rick," one of them shouted, raising his beer. The man called Rick grinned, but there was irritation brewing in his eyes. "You think you can ignore me?" he asked, his voice sharper now. The woman finally looked up, her gaze steady and calm, and said in a low tone, "I don't owe you anything." Those words, delivered without fear, lit a fuse. In a swift motion, he grabbed her arm, pulling her half out of her chair, and as she jerked back, the seam of her sleeve ripped straight down the middle. For a moment, everything slowed. The laughter stopped, conversations died, and eyes locked on the ink that was revealed on her arm. The eagle, globe, and anchor, the emblem of the United States Marine Corps, etched in sharp, proud lines across her skin. Silence hit the bar like a brick wall. The biker's hand, still holding the torn fabric, froze mid-air, his smirk faltering as his eyes darted from the tattoo to her face. The woman straightened, pulling her arm free with effortless strength, and the ripped sleeve slid down, leaving the tattoo fully visible in the dim glow of the neon lights. She didn't need to explain it. Anyone who had lived in this country knew what that mark meant. It wasn't decoration, it wasn't fashion. It was earned, carved into the skin with sweat, blood, and sacrifice. The eagle perched atop the globe, anchored firmly beneath, told the story of service, discipline, and the kind of grit that most men in that bar had never tasted. One of the older bikers, a man with graying hair and faded tattoos of his own, stood up slowly from his stool. His voice cut through the hush. "That's a Marine Corps emblem," he muttered, almost reverently. Heads nodded around the room. Some of the men shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of the line that had been crossed. The woman locked eyes with Rick, who now looked less like a bully and more like a child caught stealing. Her voice was steady, cold, but not loud. "Do you know what this means?" she asked, tapping the ink on her arm with her finger. Rick opened his mouth but no words came out. She didn't wait for his answer. "It means I've been trained harder than you can imagine. It means I've been to places you wouldn't last a day. It means I fought for the freedom that lets you sit here and act like a fool." A murmur ran through the bar, and some of the bikers lowered their eyes. She wasn't yelling, but her words carried the weight of truth, the kind that demands silence. She adjusted her torn sleeve, rolling it up to her elbow with deliberate calm, and sat back down in her chair. The bartender, who had been frozen behind the counter, exhaled loudly and muttered, "Well, damn." No one laughed this time. For a long minute, the bar stayed hushed. Rick's friends glanced at him nervously, unsure whether to laugh it off or drag him away. The man himself looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. The woman, however, didn't gloat. She didn't posture or raise her chin. She simply picked up her glass of water again and took a slow sip, as though nothing had happened. That quiet confidence was more powerful than any punch she could have thrown. Then, something unexpected happened. The older biker, the one who had recognized the tattoo first, walked across the room toward her table. His boots thudded against the wooden floor, each step deliberate. He stopped in front of her and, to everyone's surprise, gave a small nod. "Semper Fi," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of memory. Her eyes met his, and for the first time that night, a faint smile tugged at her lips. "Semper Fi," she replied. The room seemed to exhale all at once. For veterans, for Marines, that phrase wasn't just words. It meant loyalty, brotherhood, an unbreakable bond. The older biker looked over his shoulder at Rick and his crew. "You boys don't know what respect looks like, but you just saw it," he growled. Rick muttered something under his breath, but it was clear he wasn't going to push further. The balance of the room had shifted. The woman, who had walked in quietly and alone, now commanded the respect of everyone in that bar. Not because she demanded it, but because she had lived it, earned it, and embodied it. The bartender finally broke the tension with a chuckle. "Next round's on me," he said, shaking his head. And just like that, conversation resumed, but it was different now. People spoke softer. Eyes flicked toward her with newfound reverence. A few even raised their glasses discreetly in her direction. She had come in as a stranger. She had become a symbol. Hours later, as the night wound down and the bikers began to drift out into the parking lot, the woman remained at her table, still calm, still steady. Rick hadn't said another word to her. He slunk out quietly, his pride wounded but his body intact. His friends followed, their laughter muted now, replaced by uneasy silence. The older biker lingered, though, sitting on a stool near the door. He watched her for a while before finally standing and walking over. "Ma'am," he said respectfully, "I served in Nam. Haven't said Semper Fi in a long time. You reminded me tonight why those words matter." She nodded, her expression softening just a little. "Respect is earned, not taken," she said simply. He tipped his head, understanding. When she finally rose to leave, the entire bar seemed to notice. The quiet was different this time, not tense, but reverent. People moved out of her way without being asked. She pushed open the door, stepped into the cool night air, and disappeared into the dark parking lot. But the impact of her presence didn't fade. Inside, conversations turned to service, to sacrifice, to the kind of strength that isn't measured in muscle or noise but in discipline, honor, and the willingness to stand tall even when no one expects you to. The bartender shook his head as he wiped down the counter. "Never thought I'd see a room full of bikers shut up that fast," he muttered, half to himself. The older veteran chuckled, sipping his beer. "That's the thing about Marines," he said. "They don't ask for respect. They just walk in, and it follows." And long after she was gone, long after the jukebox started up again and the smoke filled the room, the story of the woman with the torn sleeve and the Marine Corps tattoo would echo in that bar, passed from table to table, a reminder that true strength isn't loud, it's undeniable. Respect is never demanded, it is earned. That night in the bar proved it. One torn sleeve revealed a lifetime of sacrifice, discipline, and honor that silenced a room full of bikers. If this story moved you, don't just scroll, share it with someone who needs to be reminded what true respect looks like. Subscribe to Kindness Vibes for more powerful real-life stories that touch the heart, inspire courage, and remind us all of the strength within. And remember, honor those who serve, and never underestimate the quiet strength of a stranger.